without further ado, Don Jr. Hey, so it looks like you're not in New Hampshire, are you? You might have snuck a day down in down in Florida.
I'll be back in New Hampshire, but yeah, I actually managed to get home for like a couple of minutes.
I was gonna say, I'm sure once your dad sees this, he's gonna be like, "All right, get back up here." He obviously thanked you and Eric profusely and the rest of the team. Let me ask you this: you've seen everything since 2015, and your dad first came down the escalator. Where did Monday rank, like in terms of feelings for you? Like, was it like, okay, that was, if election night 2016 is the highlight, where was winning Iowa that big?
Listen, it always feels good. I think the reality is 16 was a different time, right? I mean, yeah. I got to the Iowa caucuses. I didn't know what a caucus was. It was like, you know this well. I mean, when they started with Russia collusion, I'm like, we didn't know how to collude to order a cheeseburger. I was like, that's pretty sophisticated considering how little we actually know. But we got it done. And so, 16 was kind of magical because it's like there was no expectations. Everything was fresh. When you're out campaigning in Iowa now in -40, you're like, oh God, I'm doing this again. but no, it's good. I'm feeling it a lot from the people. A lot of people, I think, that were pushed around and manipulated in 20 with the nonsense in the media. Like, they see it. I mean, the last 3 years have been an abject failure. There's not a metric where we're performing well. We're at wars and this, and it never ends, and inflation and interest rates and people getting crushed. And they're like, oh, I get it. So I see people that were agnostic that just haven't been focused on politics actually get involved because they need to and they see what they're losing.
I've been ragging on Davos and the World Economic Forum, and then I see this interview the other day, Jamie Dimon talking about all the great things that happened under Trump, and I'm like, oh crap, maybe I better stop ragging on it, because he was like, more people are employed, interest rates were lower, the border was secured, and I'm like, yes, I'll take that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is someone that they were trying to run, or many were trying to push to run against Joe Biden as a Democrat. He was like, no, Trump's policies were pretty good. And I mean, and by the way, if they were intellectually honest at all, they'd get into much more detail. But yeah, I definitely didn't have that in my bingo card. That Jamie Dimon would be like, no, listen, Trump's policies were working. Right. And basically we're living in a disaster. And I certainly didn't see him do, you could see, I think it was MSNBC, or you could see him just like, these guys are gasping that they would say this because, there's no consequence to them in their lives as the Democrat Party destroys our country and everyone's financial well-being. But there is to real people. And for Jamie Dimon to get that was kind of interesting.
So I want to stay on Iowa just for a little while longer before we move on. But I asked you about your feeling organizationally, and I remember this. I actually sat down with Corey Lewandowski. I think it was at a Wendy's or a Burger King right next to the Marriott in 2015, talking about the operation. I had been out there for the Iowa State Fair a couple of times, and people kept saying, holy smokes, exponentially, the Trump organization, the Trump ground game this time blows away. When you were out there, what did you see comparatively from this time versus last time?
I just think we know how to do this now, right? Like everything else. It's part of why they don't want Trump back in office, because when you come in with no knowledge, no real connections, no understanding of who's a snake and who's great, who's just telling you what you want to hear and who's genuine, it's just so different. So when you have, a team that does this, when they've done it in the past, it makes everything so much easier. So I think, the organization, the operation, just so much better. I think between Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles, the team is just, it's rock solid right now. And it's really good.
So they had all these people doing the ground game. I saw them, asking people with 4x4s to take people. But beyond that and beyond Iowa, it was funny. There's a quote that I want to read you, obviously someone you know very well. It was in a Washington Post story. It says the whole macro strategy from the beginning was to bait them being Haley and DeSantis, to get into fights that were not important, said one of the agitators, Alec Bruzewitz, an online consultant who works with Trump's son, Don Jr., and spent his personal time. It was like the added element to this campaign seems like, let's figure out ways to push people's buttons to get them to react in certain ways.
Well, listen, I think we all have a little bit of fun with that. I mean, I did that as sort of a pretty solid internet troll myself. But the reality is you have to do those things. You have to call out the nonsense, right? And they do that. They expose themselves. Ron DeSantis, for the last year that he's been campaigning, had an online influencer crowd that I think probably destroyed his campaign in the end. But he was attacking Trump via them months before Trump even acknowledged it, when he was still pretending that he wasn't running and when he was on the longest book tour in the history of book tours, and then having him and Nikki Haley, like two just very authentic, non-authentic individuals, sort of fight it out amongst themselves. I think there's a lot. And once people saw that, they realized it's like, oh, like neither of these people is what we were told, or neither of these people fulfill the image that was created by their influencers over time. And, you hate to see it happen, but I'm glad it happened early.
So you were at one of the caucus sites and kind of, I don't know how you want, I'll let you phrase it, but you took Nikki Haley on directly. Talk to me about what you did. Was that planned? What did you say? How did you?
I imagine they wouldn't have put her campaign wouldn't have put her at a caucus location if she knew I was going to be speaking right after her, because I could do that. She hid backstage. I sat there in the middle of the people for 20 minutes before it all started, did a whole press charrette for, again, 20, 25 minutes, took every question, answered them all. She comes in from backstage, runs, delivers a canned speech, runs out of the room, doesn't take any questions from the press, and hides, because that's the reality. But then I listened to her speech and I had the opportunity to respond. And when I did, I called out all the nonsense, the policies of, never ending war and all of the things the Republican Party wants to get away from. Watching all of the Democrats on CNN saying they're switching party affiliations for 12 hours so that they can vote for Nikki Haley. Like, this isn't someone a conservative would want. This isn't someone who's America first. It's exactly the opposite.
Biden mega donors, Democrat mega donors are donating to Hillary Clinton or Nikki Haley, which is basically the same thing. It's Hillary Clinton dressing up as a conservative for Halloween.
The press reluctantly had to report that I got overwhelmingly better applause at the end of my speech than at the end of hers, because people understand real and genuine. I don't have a canned written out speech. I get up there, I feel out the crowd, I'll respond to them and go from there. And, that was palpable. And so I think it was pretty powerful.
Yeah, no, it got a lot of attention. And I think to your point, it got called out. Vivek dropped out that night. He showed up in New Hampshire, campaigned with your dad. I saw you put out a tweet thanking him. Let me ask you this. I had Jack Pasibic on the show the other day. We were talking about this dynamic of people getting on the Trump train, if you will. And it's a little different than 2015, I think, for kind of the point that you made earlier. It was new, it was different. People didn't know what they were buying into. Your dad hadn't been in politics. This time, I think you're seeing people recognize that it's over. It's, and it's almost like they want to come back and say, I made a mistake. I dated somebody else, but I still love you. I was asking Jack this. My opinion has always been politics is a game of addition. And so how do you welcome or not people who said, I was with DeSantis, I was with Nikki, or maybe I was critical of your dad, but I get it. And I want to come back.
Hey, listen, I'm fine with that. I think there are people that took it too far. There are people that just, and I know a lot of these, especially, some of the pure influencer base, because I probably helped create most of them, you know what I mean? Or boosted them for years. And then all of a sudden, they're getting, $1,000 a month from a campaign. And then but there is sort of a line, most of the people handled it well. And by the way, that's the nature of our side. We should be able to have these, differences and then come together, figure it out, because we all want to probably get generally to the same place. There's others that just tried making it personal and tried being vicious in this. So, the 99%, they'll come back, and guess what? The other 1%, if they're actually Republicans, they're still going to vote for Trump. But there was a little bit of a lesson in terms of who's an actual friend and who crossed that line of, like, we just have political differences, but we still get along. There are plenty of people that are, DeSantis folks that, hey, we text back and forth. They're still friends. We agree to disagree. But they're always maintain that boundary of civility. There's others that took it too far that I just think they're genuinely bad people.
Is there anyone that you would like to maybe name that's a bad person?
No, they're dead to me. I wouldn't give them the credit. I wouldn't get them the attention at all. If they're just never to be heard from again.